Sit back and get comfortable. I have a few stories to share with you.
"Do you think Scream is a good horror movie?" he asked. Despite how calmly he delivered that question, I still couldn't stop my lips from quivering. "Yes." He clicked his tongue and walked slowly towards where I was sitting. The wooden floor clapped at each step. He stopped behind me and gently placed his hands over my shoulders. "I think so too. It's enough to keep you on your toes, but it's enjoyable in the sense that it is self-aware." He then started to slowly massage my shoulders. "Sorry for such a random question. Just trying to calm your nerves." He paused. "Have you heard of creepypastas?" I read some of them." "That's very nice." He went beside me and gently grabbed my right hand and placed it on the keyboard. He caressed it while doing so, which led him to notice I was sweating. A lot of people write creepy stories in the internet every day. They post it on their vlogs, Facebook, Reddit, he exclaimed, as if he was trying to get me excited. "Do you think anybody could write a good horror story?" "I think so." He chuckled while placing my left hand on top of the keyboard. "So why are you so nervous? You paid top dollar for this sick opportunity. No one will be able to write a horror story like this." A loud buzzer came, and the room behind the glass in front of me lit up, revealing a rusty interior with glistening dashes of red. Two men walked in and waved at both of us like friendly neighbors. They carried away the lifeless dark lumps of meat that were once human beings. The last writer must have been very specific in his descriptions. A few minutes later, the same man dragged four strangers into the middle of the room. The glass was thick, but it wasn't thick enough to block out their collective screaming and pleading. "Relax, and try to stick to your story as much as possible." He snaps his fingers and points at the keyboard. He then lit a cigarette. The smell of it actually helped put me at ease. Showed me that anybody could write a good horror story. I took a deep breath and typed. "Looking good, Juliet," I shouted, pointing at her while I chugged down my third cup of the night. Things were definitely getting excited at the party. The music was getting loud, and everyone was jumping to the rhythm. People were greeting me from left to right, calling me out Tom, with some variations like Tommy, Tomster, and the most ridiculous would be from Mark, calling me Tomato Man because of how red I get at the end of the night. It's a large party, if I must say. I only come around once or twice a month, but still, a lot of people would remember my name and keep calling me the life of the party. Moving to another town is pretty rough, but this party is the only thing worth staying for here. From what I heard, the party already has an average of 300,000 partygoers every night. I know it's a lot. This party isn't even advertised or dipped in heavy marketing, but I guess it's because it's pretty popular underground. I wouldn't be able to earn the title Life of the Party with just a pretty smile, of course. The management knew I was bringing lots of friends. I think I've invited over 50 of my friends inside, and they may not have liked me dragging them, but keeping these wonderful festivities all to myself would just be a crime. As I was walking around, greeting my friends, out of nowhere, a light shined into my face. I was being blinded by someone from outside. "Hey!" the lady shouted. The music stopped. I walked towards her, but she kept shining her flashlight. So I tripped over Juliet's tombstone. "You shouldn't be here at this time of night." She raised her voice again. Everyone was booing. They all looked at me, expected me to handle the situation. I walked towards my bag and pulled out the pistol. Looks like it's time to send out another invitation. So you have to light the candle after you turn off the lights. Otherwise, it won't work.
Yeah, Katie, I know, Andy whispered huffily. Then get in there, Katie said, shoving Andy towards the bathroom.
Andy walked inside and closed the door, ignoring the giggles of the girls outside. She shook her head and walked over to the sink. This was dumb. She didn't even want to be here. But her mom and Katie's were close friends, so she always had to accept whatever birthday or slumber party Katie was forced to extend. And now, here she was at yet another sleepover, playing Katie's newest obsession, summoning the Shadow Man. Andy wasn't sure what the difference was between the Shadow Man, Candyman, or any of the spirits summoned through a mirror. Probably nothing. She sighed and turned off the lights, lighting the candle. "Ready?" The giggling outside intensified before slowly quieting down. Then the chanting started. "Shadow Man, Shadow Man, Shadow Man. He hates the day, he hates the day. Shadow Man, Shadow Man, Shadow Man. Come out and play." As each verse ended, their voices grew louder, more expectant. Andy began counting. They were supposed to chant 4 times and then knock, inviting the Shadow Man in. That was the theory, anyways. "Shadow Man, Shadow Man, Shadow Man. He hates the day." They were almost yelling now. Andy gripped the candle and waited. One more verse to go. Despite herself, she was actually growing nervous. She knew it was nonsense. But standing in the dark, looking at her wide-eyed reflection, distorted by the flame, Andy felt a shiver run down her spine. "Shadow Man, Shadow Man, come out and play." The girls finished before there was a loud knock on the door. Andy held her breath and waited. Outside was completely silent. She leaned forward a bit as the candle wavered. Surely that was just her imagination. Another knock rang through the bathroom. Andy yelped and jumped back. Now the knocks were more like bangs, quick and insistent. Dropping the candle, Andy began to twist the door handle, but it was to no use. It would not open. "Guys, this isn't funny. Let me out," Andy begged, trying to fight back tears. A pair of hands reached out from behind and grabbed her. Andy screamed, throwing all her weight against the door, crashing out to raucous laughter. Scared and confused, she looked behind her to see the shower curtain flung wide open from where she had been hiding. "That's not funny," Andy shouted, pushing away from everyone. Come on, don't wait yourself," Katie chuckled. "Besides, you should have seen your face. Priceless." Andy stopped, her shoulder hunched, shivering. The other girls brushed past her back to the living room, unconcerned. As Katie walked by, she glanced over at Andy and stopped. She was smiling, but it was more of a grimace than a smile. "Andy? No hard feelings, yeah?" Katie said nervously. A shadow passed over Andy's face as she looked up into Katie's eyes. "Of course not. Now come on, let's go play."
On April 15th, the Robertsons died in a car accident. On September 19th, the Robertsons woke up. To Melissa and her daughter Joyce, the news that they'd been killed in a flaming wreck of twisted metal after a head-to-head collision on an intersection came as quite a shock. The kind of thing that would perhaps cause a certain level of unpleasant psychological distress if left unchecked. Their husband and father, the famed geneticist Dr. Ernest Robertson, was sure to ease them gently into it. "I was able to reconstruct your memories almost exactly," he said. "Save your crash, of course. That's something you're probably better off forgetting. But otherwise, you're good as new. Just leave it all to me." Dr. Robertson had done an impeccable job reconstructing his wife and child exactly how he wanted to remember them, drawing full, living human beings out of the smallest strands of DNA. A lifetime achievement that redefined science as we knew it, and things were perfect for a while. Even though the two of them had no real, tangible awareness of the deaths they'd experienced, Joyce and Melissa found a new appreciation for the life Dr. Robertson had given them. They carried themselves with a keen awareness of the fact that everything they had, they owed to him. They were grateful. They were happy. It was a terrible shame, then, when Melissa and Joyce began to disappoint Dr. Robertson. Sometimes, when Dr. Robertson told Joyce it was time to go to bed, she'd be petulant. Sometimes, when Dr. Robertson wanted some peace and quiet, she'd insist on making noise. Melissa, too, would ask questions she shouldn't have been asking, about gaps in her memory, about tiny inconsistencies here and there that did not seem to add up. She just kept tugging at the little threads on the edges of the perfect life Dr. Robertson had so generously stitched together for them. It was when Melissa found a photograph of herself before the crash, she assumed, where she had a face that seemed ever so slightly different. Fuller cheeks, darker eyes, a rounder chin, that the good doctor decided enough was enough. Dr. Robertson thought Melissa and Joyce were being ungrateful, so one morning he took a revolver out of his desk drawer and shot them both through the forehead while they slept. When the bodies stopped twitching, he dragged them out of bed and threw them on the pile. Shame, terrible shame, Dr. Robertson thought, as he made 2 notes in his journal. Less curious, more obedient. 10th time's the charm, he said, as he got back to work. On November 6th, the Robertson died in a car crash, as far as they're aware. On January 3rd, the Robertsons woke up. "You're a murderer," the scrawny-looking man said. "I know you did it." I scowled. I was just about to sleep when my neighbor decided to start spouting his usual bullshit. "Look, man," I said, "can we skip this crap? I have no idea what you're talking about, and I just want to sleep." A lie, of course, but I wanted that idiot gone. I closed the door, but my neighbor blocked it with his foot. "You murderous freak," he spat. "I can smell the blood on your hands." I blinked. "Are you stupid? I told you 1,000,000,000 times. I'm not a serial killer." He did not believe me. He never did. "Look, I'm going to sleep." I pushed my neighbor away and shut the door close. I groaned and went back to my bed. "Fucking neighbor," I muttered. I fell asleep half an hour later, only to wake up to someone banging on my door. I opened my eyes and found my walls painted red. The police charged into my house and found me in the middle of a pile of cut limbs. Blood was sprayed all over my walls. I was shell-shocked when the police arrested me. An anonymous call was made that night. Someone had seen me dragging suspicious bags into my house, the size of a person. The police decided to check it and found me in my bedroom, surrounded by body parts and blood all over. I tried to explain that I was innocent, and when they found the bone saw with my DNA on it, hidden underneath the floor, the jury had made its decision. As I was drafted to prison, I saw my neighbor in the crowd that had gathered outside the court hall. As I passed him, he whispered, "Rot in jail, you psycho." He had this insane look in his eyes, and as I was dragged away from him, I screamed, all the while staring at the red stains on his boots.
Do it.
The news had told us that it was just like in the movies and comic books. The dead had risen and were eating the living. But these weren't like the ones in the comic books. They were smart. They knew how to get around. They knew how to plan. They knew where to look. I lied when I told her that it was all fake.
Do it.
It started in South America, but it was quickly spreading through Europe, Asia, and the rest of the continent. Before we knew it, Mexico was gone, and the US military was defending the border. But they were running out of people. One less soldier for us meant one more for them. I lied when I told her there was no way we could get in.
Do it.
County by county, state by state, they ravaged it all. Internet, gone. Phone lines, gone. Communication, gone. We decided to stay at home and secure it as much as possible, since we had no idea where else to go. I lied when I told her the door could hold. "Do it, Jacob," she whispered. I can't, I answered, crying as quietly as possible. "You said you would, you promised." I hear them walking in our living room, going through our stuff. There must be at least 30, and it sounds like some are making their way upstairs. "Please," she whispered again. "One for me, one for you. Then it'll be over." They were at our doorstep now, trying to open it. I looked at the gun in my hand. All those lies I told her. I just wish I hadn't lied about how many bullets we had left. It happened without a warning. 1 hour, the world was normal. The next, it was lighter. The rich, powerful, and famous were gone. Politicians from the nation's governments, high-end businessmen, professional athletes, Hollywood, huge chunks of the military. Poof, gone. It didn't take long for the rest of us to notice. Once we did, the conspiracy theories began in earnest. In the first days following, the loudest voices were giving airtime on local news stations, screaming that the elite knew something we didn't. We dismissed those warnings. It seemed preposterous that they would simply abandon the vast majority of mankind. We tried to pick up the pieces in their absence, but it was hard at first. So many of the integral pieces of our infrastructure were gone, after all. New elections were held under the guidance of professors and retired government workers, and reserves banded together with what remained of the militaries. All of this progress almost didn't happen though. A week after the great disappearance, while the world was still chaos, a video played on every internet-connected device across the planet. The world's leaders were its star, sitting at a long table and wearing somber expressions. What they had done, they said, was the hardest decision mankind would ever have to make. An alien race was on its way to Earth, and it was on a warpath. The governments of the world had an estimated arrival date, and knew the action had to be taken. The action, they decided, was to ensure the future of the species by saving what they could of it. Of course, that happened to only include the rich and powerful. Our sacrifice wouldn't be in vain, though, they said. Humanity will remember our bravery forever. And with that, they left us to our fate. This reveal threatened to send the disorder of the world into pure chaos. But the invaders arrived before that could happen. We braced ourselves for the fight. Even though it was a fight we would surely lose. The fight never happened. They did not bring war, but a second chance. They had been monitoring us for hundreds of years, and they finally did not like what they saw. Theorizing that the current leaders of our world would abandon us if given a doomsday scenario, the aliens made themselves known to our governments. They were coming to destroy us, they said, and our leaders responded exactly as predicted. The moment they left Earth in their pods, the aliens slaughtered them. They left us, survivors, to our own devices for a week, and then came to offer us support in our rebuilding efforts. This support did not come in any form of fancy alien tech or advanced form of government, though. Their approach, beyond the culling of our elite, was mostly hands-off. No, the help they provided was motivational, in the form of graphic footage of their dispatching of our leaders. We got the message loud and clear. Do better next time. The world unanimously agreed we would certainly try. We need to talk about the kid. Mom speaks to Dad. Billy is sitting between his father and his mother, thinking it's unusual for his mom to talk in such a monotonous tone. He does not say a word, because he has learned over the years that it is not wise to talk when Mom and Dad are talking. In fact, not to talk at all is the only wise choice for Billy in this household. What? Dad expressed his lack of patience in just one word. Dad is always good at expressing anger, sometimes by words, and sometimes by fists, seasoned with a belt whip or two. And occasionally by a pair of Oxfords, if Dad miraculously gets a job interview that day. Billy thinks to himself, almost bursts out into laughter. It is an unusual sense of humor for a 16-year-old boy to have. But Billy's life is never usual, and he has also been through a lot more than a 16-year-old should have had. Don't want me. If you had spent more time with the kid, I wouldn't have been called to the principal's room again. Also, it's my fault now that the kid is running around school breaking stuff, hurting other students. Dad's voice is getting louder with every word. Billy wants to tell them that his name is Billy and not the kid, but he restrains this urge to avoid the beating he will get if he opens his mouth. He forgets he won't be beaten again, not anymore. Of course, it's your fault. I'm always the one that puts food on the table. What have you done for this family? Normally, Dad will fire back with another insult, then begins to beat up Mom.
just another Wednesday night in Billy's home. But that is not happening, because Billy is bored of role-playing now. He withdraws his hands from his parents' cold lips. His thumbs are sore from arching up and down constantly, trying to make their mouths move. Billy rests his back against the chair and gazes at what is in front of him, as if he is looking at the greatest piece of art he has ever seen before. Arms draping like broken branches towards the ground. There are little streams of dry blood on Dad's left arm. They come from the gashes on his throat. Mom doesn't have much blood on her body because the fork is still buried deep inside her neck. For the first time in his life, Billy feels relieved. He feels free. He decides to do something only grown-ups are allowed to do in this house. He laughs.